welcome to Dialogue with Deidre. So, this is sponsored by the Carter Malone Network. I have to remember that because I do want to say the Carter Malone Group. And my guest today on Dialogue with Deidre is Lori Evans. She is the president of the Junior League of Memphis. Lori, welcome to Dialogue with Deidre.
Hi, Deidre.
Hi. So this is going to be a fun conversation because Lori and I have known each other a long time. She's an alum of Jackson State University. She was Miss Jackson State University. Lori, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
So, well, thank you for having me today. And as Deidre said, I am a graduate of the Jackson State. Let's get it correct. The with two E's, Jackson State University. And yes, I was Miss Jackson State University, 1998, 1999. So I'm actually celebrating my 25th college anniversary this year. And I'm like, oh, wow. I was like, are they getting that old? Because I know it's not me.
No.
But yeah, I'm originally from Jackson, Mississippi. And I was very actively involved in Jackson State as an undergraduate student, also as a graduate student. And I actually worked there for 15 years in the area of student life. So I was a student affairs, student life administrator. And then in 2014, I relocated to Memphis. And I told myself, I was really actively involved in the community in Jackson and with the Legislative Black Caucus. And I did a lot of work with government affairs with Jackson State and some of our Legislative Black Caucus members. And anyway, so I was really busy. And when I moved here and I said, I'm not going to recreate my life in Memphis. I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to be a person walking around Memphis. That lasted for like 2 weeks. And I was like, what do I do? And I wanted to get plugged in because I feel like, Memphis is now my home, but Memphis is such a great place. And there are so many positive opportunities and a lot of diverse opportunities to get involved. And I didn't want to be the person who was sitting on the side, who was part of the nagging and part of the problem. I wanted to see how I could, plug in and be a part of the solution. So here I am.
So let me ask you, were you a member of the Junior League down in Jackson?
Yes, that is where I joined. And so I joined the Junior League of Jackson. Excuse me, I was invited to join the Junior League of Jackson.
You have to be invited.
Yes, you have to be invited.
As an old leaguer.
Yes. I think it was 2008, I believe it was. And so they have, theirs is a sponsorship process, and so every league has a different admission policy or process, and so theirs is a strictly invitation. You have to be sponsored, and so I never forget this day. I had 4 sponsors. One was a past president, and I had no idea that they were going to invite me to join. And so they, one lady had called me. She was a VP of fund development, and she told me one day, she said, hey, I want you to come to my house and have lunch with me. And back then they had these notebooks, like they were directories.
Okay.
And she said, I just want to have lunch, and I want you to look through the notebook and see if there's anybody here you know. So I started going through the notebook, and I was like, oh, I know this person. And a lot of the women in the organization were some of the young ladies I had gone to high school with. And at the time, being honest, there were not a lot of women of color, right? And so I was, just looking through and I identified. So at that particular point, she got a group together, and it was 4 women. And so it was the following February. I think it's the first Tuesday in February, which is their invitation day. And they had prepared this dinner, wanted me to come over, and it was actually storming like it is outside right now. And I walked in, and there was this chair, and they had all this food, and they were like, come on in and have a seat. And I was like, no, where's everybody else? And I'm looking around. I mean, it was a big deal. And then they, gave me this white envelope, and they had all these gifts. And I was like, what is happening here? And they said, well, we would like to, invite you to join the Junior League of Jackson. And that's kind of how it started. And my provisional class, so as a new member, you're referred to as a provisional.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was the co-chair of my provisional project. So we broke up in mini placements, and then I just kind of continued on the leadership trajectory. And my aspiration to become president started in Jackson.
Okay.
And how I became familiar with the Junior League is that they had a thrift shop, which was called Bargain Boutique, similar to Memphis's Repeat Boutique. And my mom and I would often donate clothes or donate items. Yeah. And we would shop there sometimes because they would have high-end things,
really nice
things
stuff.
Right, with tags on it.
Absolutely.
And so every time I would go in, there were all these ladies with these smocks on. They were all smiling. They had these pictures throughout the store. showing their service in the community. And so I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And so, so we laugh about that all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. So we had opportunity to partner with the Junior League on an ACT prep workshop at Lanier High School. And I just saw these women coming in, and they were on it. They were organized. They were about the business. And I was like, oh, this is the organization that has the Bargain Boutique store. And so from that point on, I wanted to learn more about them. Yes. And so that's when they had phone books, those thick phone books. And I looked up the number and I called to get some information about, the organization. And the person who answered the phone, she told me you have to be at least, at the time, you had to be at least 25 to join, and you couldn't be over 40. So I was, 23, I think, at the time. But that's just kind of how I started, getting acclimated and started learning about the organization. And here I am.
Was Jackson's league diverse?
So honestly, no, not before my provisional class.
Okay.
In my provisional class, I think there were 8 African-American women, and that was the largest number of African-American women they had in a new member class. And the new member class could have been, I think mine was like, let's say 175.
Okay.
And so out of 175 women, you had 8, 8 African-American women. And so that kind of started, I don't want to say the trend, but it kind of opened the doors to more women of color joining. And so now, yes, they're very diverse now. And they've now had maybe 2 or 3 African-American presidents.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And so, but, and the thing about it is, when you join, it's just like anything else. When you set your sights on like, okay, you could either be like your church. You can just sit on a pew, or you can be in the choir, you can be an usher, you can go beyond just being a dues paying member. Exactly. And that's what I wanted to do. And so for me, I just started trying to put myself on that leadership trajectory to see how can I get there. And it just so happened, it wasn't Jackson, but it became Memphis. So, that's kind of how it happened.
And so what is your vision now? You are the president. I
mean,
and if I'm not mistaken, you're the second African-American.
Second African-American, yep.
To lead the organization. Back in the day when I was a league member, I don't even think we ever thought about somebody black running and being president. I think back then it might have been like 5 or 6 of us.
Wow. Yeah. And it's really, it's a good thing to see how far we've come. And I tell people all the time, they will say, so what was your, experience like in Jackson? I said, well, let me just tell you, Jackson is a well-oiled machine, and it is a pillar in the Jackson community, right? And I know Memphis used to be the same. And so I tell people, when the movie The Help came out,
yes,
when the book came out, Catherine Stock, she honey, she ruffled some feathers, and because her mother was a member of the Junior League of Jackson. And so a lot of the fictitious characters that were in the book, people were like, oh, you know who that is? You know who, Hilly is, and they were like, that person's still living. We were like, oh my God. It was something, really serious. And so Erica Stiff Coopwood was the first African-American president for the Junior League of Memphis in 2018, 2020. She's originally from Yazoo City, Mississippi.
Oh, is she from Mississippi?
She is from Mississippi. Okay. And I had no idea until one day I just, she said, I'm from Yazoo City. I said, Yazoo City, Mississippi? Because you don't really meet people from like Yazoo City. And so we got to talking. And when we went to lunch one day, and I never should forget this, we were at Houston's. And we were just talking, and she had been actively involved in league. And I said, I'm going to be the president of Junior League of Memphis one day. I want to be the first black. And she said, well, would you possibly consider being the second? And she had not officially been asked, but I think they were in the process. It's a process. They had started, trying to kind of nudge her a little bit. And so, she gave me encouragement and support when I decided to really put my name in the hat, to apply, because there are certain requirements that you have to do in order to get on that pathway to be in leadership, and especially president. So, yes, I am the second African-American president. I do not take that lightly.
Right.
It is indeed an honor because for me, I know that like my grandmother, she was a domestic worker. Right. And so her families were some of the families of the Junior League of Memphis. Jackson. And so for me to see that, this is where I am on this side. Right. And even though, she's no longer living, but, with my dad and, my parents and it's something for them to see, because when they came to my house to ask me, if it's a whole production too, it's a whole invitation when they come to ask if you were service president. And I called my dad. I FaceTimed my dad and had all these women, standing in my house. And I said, Dad, I want you to see all these ladies in my house. They're my friends, and they have come to ask me something. And he was like, what? And I said, they came to ask me if I would be the president of Junior League of Memphis. And he just started crying. They all started crying.
Sure.
And he said, my mother is, my mother's deceased, but he said, your mom would be so proud of you. And that's, and he said, I'm proud of you. And when I started talking to him, the Junior League of Jackson, and I see everything just kind of ties back to Jackson for
Absolutely.
me, right? But they started the first inner city tennis program for inner city youth in Jackson, Mississippi. And I did not know my dad was a tennis coach. And so they hired my dad as their first tennis coach, and he ran their program, doing their summer program, right? And so they were teaching inner city children, how to learn the game of tennis. And so, so that, for me, it kind of tied back to full circle. Absolutely. So, yeah. So my theme for my biennium is remember your why. And I thought about that because when I started really thinking about the Junior League and thinking about, everybody has a theme. And I said, the pandemic really just kind of did a number for organizations, and especially nonprofits. And we've had membership challenges, and we've been trying to re-engage our members and get them reconnected to the organization. And so, you have to choose to come to the Junior League, right? And so whether you're a current member or a former member, but you have to choose the Junior League. And so I started thinking about why do people join, or why did people join? Mm-hmm. And so I said, remember your why, remember the why. And then I said, no, remember your why, because people's priorities changed. 4 years ago, we would have never, ever imagined that the world would have just stopped.
Right.
I mean, literally stopped. And so you had people that were isolated, who were not connected to the world. And one thing I can say is that the Junior League of Memphis, our membership, we were able to be that comfort and that blanket, like, Linus Van Pelt on Charlie Brown, be that comfort blanket for some women who were isolated, who were alone, and to help those in need. We actually started at like an assistance fund for those who may not have been able to pay their dues, or needed some financial assistance, right? Because we weren't able to gather. Right. And so I started thinking about all that, and I said, and as we were coming back to an in-person program, it was like, why are you still here? And what made you want to join? And then why have you stayed? And if you left, why did you leave? Right. But then why should you come back? Mm-hmm. And then why should you do the things that you say that you're supposed to do, like your obligations in the organization, to be a successful member and engaged member? So that's kind of where I came up with remember your why. And personal plug, the Carter Malone group, I reached out and I went through our directory, and I was like, I need somebody to create my logo. I had all these, things in my head, and I'm not a graphics person. So I reached out to Jennifer Sharp, and I said, are you like a graphics person? And she was like, no, but the organization I work for, they are, the Carter Malone group. I said, the Carter Malone group? Like Deidre Carter Malone? I was like, oh my goodness. So I reached out, and the Carter Malone group graciously, said, yes, we will do that for you. And when I tell you, I get so many compliments on our logo, and it's just, it was, I was thinking, I want the bridge, I want the end bridge, because everybody always wants the bridge, and it was just like, Kim, she let me tell all these things, and I guess she was like, no, let's bring this back to the center. but it turned out to be very simple, but very impactful and very powerful, and it's what I needed.
Oh,
so
well, that
thank
makes
you for
me
that.
Feel, that makes
thank
me
you for
feel
that.
So
Mm-hmm.
good. Well, I'm just so glad we were able to help you, because this is important work that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and leading
Mm-hmm.
an organization that's a service organization.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people don't realize, being the president of an organization that has over the years had such an amazing impact on
Mm-hmm.
our community.
Mm-hmm.
The stakes are really high.
Yeah. And, and we've been very instrumental in standing up, several community organizations like Hope House, which is celebrating their 30th anniversary. And we are working with them to we did, as part of our centennial year, which was 2022, we had a centennial fund. And so what we did was we took some of those funds and we invested them throughout our community. So Hope House, giving back to Hope House was one of the things that we did. I mean, we gave them I can say a $30,000 donation to help aid in the continuing work that they do in the community to support, women and children that are living with HIV and AIDS.
Exactly.
And so that's very important because that impacts our community, right?
It does.
And then like the Children's Museum of Memphis, WKNO, just like some other organizations. But, we were very instrumental in starting those organizations. Lucia Gilliland, who recently passed,
yes,
was a past president of Junior League of Memphis, and she was very instrumental in saving the Orpheum. And I didn't find that out until, I found that she had passed away, and then I started researching her, and I was like, man, and she was a powerhouse in this community. And it was, of course, before I moved here, but just her, she was, to me, I never had a chance to meet her, but she was like a quiet storm, right?
Amazing.
I read about the work that she did, like the political work that she did.
And her husband.
And her husband too, right? Mm-hmm. But they unified, like, let's say both political parties, no matter, where you ended up on the political, side. But and the work that she did, not only here in Memphis, but afar and, on a national scale.
Oh, yeah. Real close to the Clintons.
Very much so, right. I started reading and I was like, oh, my God, And so when they were, going to tear down the Orpheum, she saved the Orpheum. And I remember there was a quote that someone did. They were doing the like a obituary and talking about her life. And someone talked about one of the fond memories is that there was maybe like a county mayor or something, or maybe a city mayor, but he called her husband to ask her husband if she could serve on the committee. And he said, well, why don't you call and ask her? But thinking about the time, women were not really allowed to be in the forefront.
Right.
Women were not really allowed or perceived or welcomed to be, a vocal, vocal and visible. And so, yeah, I mean, we've changed and we've come a long way, but I think in the right direction.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think about when I was there, I was the public affairs chair. I got involved because of the advocacy piece.
Yeah.
And then in Nashville, guess who the public affairs chair was? Beth Harwell.
Really?
Ended up being the Speaker of the House.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Full
leadership.
Circle. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Leadership.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about your recruitment effort. If somebody wants to join the league, what do they need to do?
So we welcome them to join our mailing list. Go to our website, which is www.jlmemphis.org. You can sign up to receive our newsletter. Stay in the loop with what we're doing. We start recruitment. We're doing year-round recruitment. So like if you are interested, we invite you to attend some of our programs so that you can see what we do when we're doing it in action. We will officially start our recruitment period opens March 1st of 2025. So it opens March 1st of every year, and it closes July 31st of that same year. So we have those months to recruit. We hold recruitment events throughout the city. We do some that are virtual, like some lunch and learns. We have an opportunity for you to meet some of our members. We have a whole recruitment team. If you have to at least be 21 when you join, but at least 23 by the time 22 and then 23 by the time you finish your program. So the provisional program as a whole is a one full year. And so it starts June through May. So by the time you graduate, you have to at least be 25 years old. So, so we're, one thing I will say, and I recognize this, right, is that while we are diverse, we're still missing some of the very important pieces of the puzzle of our community. So like the Asian community and the Hispanic community, right? We have some women who are, of that ethnicity, but we don't have a lot. And we want our organization to reflect the community in which we serve, and so that's where one of my focuses is like really to kind of push to reconnect and to find an open door to those communities so that they understand that we welcome you to become a member and become active with us, because again, we need to serve all sectors of our community, right? And so sometimes we don't know what we don't know, but we need those eyes and ears on the ground to help us to find those pathways into those communities.
And so, Lori, talk to me about those programs, because I think that will help to kind of let people who might be interested in joining the league have a really good understanding of the type of programs and events that you have.
Yeah, so we have a 5K, 10K race that's coming up. I think
Can people walk?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I told them I'm going to put on a costume. I'm going to walk because the only way I run is from my car to the door. You know what I'm saying?
If it's raining.
Exactly. But it's I'm not really crazy about this name, but it's called the Witches 5K 10K run. Okay. But we started that because a couple of years ago it was hosted around Halloween, Halloween anyway. And so, but it's a 5K 10K. It's October the 19th. So we welcome anyone, families. It's a family friendly event. So whether you want to walk or you want to run, you just want to pass out water like I'm probably gonna be doing. Come to that. We have our Apex, which is a DEIB experience, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging experience, and it's hosted by our DEIB Council and our Women of Color affinity group. That's going to be Friday, November the 1st at Southwest Tennessee Community College, the Macon campus. Okay. And then we're also planning for our really big event, which is going to be in the spring of 2025, which is Develop Her. And we're in the process of trying to solidify our keynote speaker, but we're going to have some breakout sessions. And that program, it's one of my favorites because you have an opportunity to really tap into your membership, to get our members to lead those breakout sessions and to see, all of the human and social capital that we have in this organization.
Exactly.
We have some amazing women in this organization doing some amazing things in this community. And, I tell them all the time, I told them at our, provisional Super Saturday orientation, raise your hand. If you want to serve, if you want to lead, I told them raise your hand and let me know. So we can start, trying to put you on a leadership trajectory and see how we, wherever you want to go, wherever path you want to go, we can try to help you get there. And then we have some other like internal programs, like we have our Kids in the Kitchen, which is a Junior League organic program where we work with our kids at the Binghamton Community, Leicester Community Center in Binghamton Community about teaching them the importance of healthy eating, right? Because what we also know is Binghamton, there is a food desert.
There is a food desert there.
It's a food desert. When Save-A-Lot moved out, it was already a food desert, but it's really now a food desert. And people are like, oh, well, they can go to Kroger. Well, the Kroger may be 3 or 4 miles down the road, but you got to think about, do they actually have transportation to get there? So we have some grant programs that we work with, that we receive grants, and we do the Kids in the Kitchen where we bring in dietitians, and we bring in, different speakers and showing the children and also the parents how to prepare healthy meals. Because one thing about it is, you can show a child, but then also, the child, they're not going home to cook. So we want to involve, right. So we want to involve the parents so that they understand, because, again, in our community, we're faced with so many health challenges, heart disease, high cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes, and all those type of things. So we want to make sure that we can do our part to help try to help curb and try to decrease the numbers and how our families are being impacted by those health disparities. Because, healthcare is a disparity in our community as well. And so, we also have like our Grow Binghamton Supper Club, which is every Thursday night. They go and they provide a meal to the families, Binghamton. So we invite the children and the parents to come and sit down at a table and have a meal. But we also, then we break the parents off and we do educational, workshops or sessions with them. Maybe like, how to open up a bank account, how to manage your money, budgeting, different things like, it could be resume writing skills. And sometimes we'll just have an open session. So we do those type of programs. We have a new partnership with Salvation Army, where we're going to with the Purdue Center of Hope. And we're going to be working with them to kind of to model our Grow Binghamton program, our supper club, with the Purdue Center of Hope, with the women and children at Purdue Center of Hope. And then we've had a partnership with like Habitat for Humanity. And so we have several different communities, it's programs throughout our community. We try to make sure that we're touching all parts of the community so that people know that we're still here. And I tell them our 3 V's, that we're Valuable, viable, invisible.
Valuable, viable,
Invisible.
invisible. I love it. Okay, so the last 5 minutes,
Okay.
I'd like to spend a little time really trying to make sure people know who you are,
Okay.
right? I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I don't think you have these. So you talked about that you moved to Memphis. What brought you to Memphis?
You know, I'm just gonna be honest. My husband.
Yes.
You know, he's he brought me to Memphis. Well, I came to Memphis for him. I'll say like this. So we both attended Jackson State 2 different times.
My husband too.
Yep. So we had a mutual friend. His best friend and line brother was my best friend. He lived in Jackson, and so we both had been married before. So we were divorced, and I just always hung out with them because his best friend was my best friend, and he was like, "Man, that girl is crazy." Because I was really like one of the guys, and he was like, "Is she really that crazy?" He was like, "What you see is what you get," And so it was after a while, and then he was just kind of like, he came to a game, and I was always asking him, "Who is this guy that keeps popping up in our friend group like once or twice a year?" And they were like, "We knew him before we knew you." And so they were like, let's just be real clear. But we started talking, and I was just like, no, I would never leave Jackson. I was like, no. But I guess I did, so I left Jackson, and here I am. So that's what honestly what brought me to Memphis. But I will say this, Deidre, being a Jackson native and being there all my life, I always thought I was going to be there forever. I thought I was going to work at Jackson State forever. Like Dolly, in Robinson, I was just like, this is going to be me. But, God had other plans, right?
Yes.
And God said, it's time for you to move, and it's time for you to step out of your comfort zone and do something different. And I will tell you, when, no matter what your faith or what you believe in, but, I believe in the power of prayer, but I also believe that God has a plan
for you.
And
Absolutely.
everybody's plan is different. He doesn't need our help. But I will say this, whenever you ask him for something, you better be ready for whatever he gives you, because sometimes he will give you and he will move you. And when you're asking for things and you're not necessarily moving, he's gonna ruffle your feathers a little bit and move you for yourself.
Right.
And so that's kind of really what happened. And so that's how I ended up here in Memphis.
Well, we're so glad you're here. What's your favorite movie?
Okay, so I have several, but I will tell you, one of my favorite movie series is The Hangover.
Really?
Yes. Let me tell you something. I could watch that movie 1, 2, and 3, and really 1, I can watch it over and over and over again. And when I tell you, like, my sides are hurting, I mean, honestly, like, the first time I saw it, it was after it came out, and I was just like, where has this movie been all my life? And so, when I'm talking to people, I'll always say, have you seen this movie? They're like, no. Everybody knows me. I reference movies in my conversation. So you could say, I was telling somebody one day, they were talking about, somebody asked me, did I know somebody? And I said, well, like Miss Millie said, I don't know her either. And they were like, what is that from? I was like, Color Purple. Like, so I reference movies. So I love the Hangover series. I love 1. And I say a lot of times, like, I'm Alan, because I'm the fun person in the group, right? So I just went on vacation, and we were doing a parasailing activity one day.
Oh, my goodness.
And on the way back, I asked guys, I said, hey, can I drive the boat? And so my friends were like, sir, like, what? No, he let me drive the boat. And so then I said, hey, I'm talking to him, and I'm just driving. And they were like, my friend, she said, Alan. Because, on the second one, he crashed the boat, up on the thing. So anyway, I love the Hangover series. So that's one of my favorite. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite food?
Seafood.
Okay.
All things seafood. Yep, all things seafood.
Okay, now this is going to mess you up, and you better come correct with
Okay.
Who was your favorite singer?
Patti LaBelle.
Okay.
Patti LaBelle. Yeah. When Patti sings, I don't know, it's something about it. And that song, If You Only Knew, yes. I love that song. And When You've Been Blessed, that does something for me. That was one of my mom's favorite songs, When You've Been Blessed. And now my dad is a singer. I'm not a singer. My dad has been in a band. They've been in singing together for over 60 years.
Oh my goodness.
My dad is 87. He just turned 87 in May. They are still performing.
Stop.
He lives in Jackson, but they are still performing. They go to the nursing homes. He actually goes to the Elks. He goes to wherever somebody,
What's the name of the band?
They're called, I don't know what they call now. They used to be called the Quails, but they recorded a record. And I mean, and so when he turned 80, I found the record and I had it framed for him. And so I mean, they used to sing with the Duke Huddleston band, and he would tell them like when they would go sing with to the black crowds, they would be the Quails, and they go sing to like some of the white groups. They would be a different name. But he told me about when he came to Memphis, they were performing out on Beale Street and things like that. But yeah, so I love Patti LaBelle.
Patty's a good one.
Yes, and it's just something about her sultry voice, and then sometimes you just have to listen to the message in the music. And I one thing I know is, even sitting in this seat, I've been blessed.
Yes.
And I know, and I don't take it for granted. I don't take it lightly. And I just know that God has just been opening doors for me. He's allowed my name to be spoken in rooms where I'm not present.
There. Exactly.
And I know, that speaks to, honestly, it speaks to the testament of relationships, right, that you have with people. And of course, Deidre, when I first moved here, everybody was talking about Deidre and Patrick Malone. I was like, who are these people? And I want to meet them. And so it took me like about 2 years, but I finally, I kept emailing Deidre, was like, hey, would you come back and join the alumni chapter? And one day I just popped up over here, and she was like, come on in. And she's like, I'm going to write that check. She wrote a dues, wrote Pat's dues. Life member. She did. Yes.
Like me and Pat Malone.
Yes.
Lori Evans, okay?
But seriously, and I don't take our relationship, lady, because it's like, you've done so much in this community, and you yourself are president. Are you still president now, or you
National Women's Political
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay, so two-year term too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So and it's just watching. There are a lot of women that I watch in the community, you being one, and like Joselle Luster Book, who's also a JSU grad.
State, yes.
Absolutely. And so
my classmate.
Right. So looking at the work that you do in the community, and the impact that you've had in this city, and then the lives that you've inspired. So, to me, that just keeps me going.
Well, love you for that. You know that. So this has been such a joy to have you, Lori, on
Thank
Dialogue
you.
with Deidre. And you can come back anytime.
Yes.
Anytime, because the boss lady says so.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, your boss lady, she's my boss lady too.
I know she is.
So she tells me, she makes sure, that all my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed. And so, and I appreciate her for the work that she does. And we would love to, come
She's
back.
A rock star.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as I told her this just yesterday, I was like, you are the right woman in the right seat at the right time.
Exactly.
And so one thing I know, she's a professional. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people can't always deal with, your timelines, your outlines, but you got to work within the confines, right?
Exactly.
And so, but again, I appreciate her for the work, because one thing I can say is, someone did tell me this last night. I was at an event, and they said a former member told them, "Oh, our communications is on point." And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "I will see her tomorrow, and I'll make sure I tell her." But we have some amazing programs that are going on in the Junior League, and some other things. And one thing about it is, this is my first year, my two-year term. And there's some things that I want to see implemented, and I may not see them come to fruition during my 2 years, but at least we can lay the foundation and build the foundation for some things to come down the road, because we are celebrating 102 years.
Oh my goodness!
And most nonprofits don't last past 30 or 40 years, and that's a national statistic, right? And so I want to make sure that whatever we can do in these next 2 years, from 24 to 26, that we can help the Junior League to stay a viable organization and set us up for sustainable success in the community.
Lori Evans, president of the Junior League of Memphis. We are so proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on Dialogue with Deidre, and you can come back anytime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next Friday.